What is a movie you find terrible but critics seem to love? People conflating movies that are popular with movies critics love. Girl on the Third Floor. I don't understand how this giant piece of shit has 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. In my opinion, I feel Tom Hanks didn't accurately portray Fred Rogers at all. Rogers was in no way as eccentric as the persona portrayed by Hanks in the film, but was his own breed of human. The Rogers character portrayed by Hanks, especially with the portrayal of violence in a scene of the film set during a live broadcast of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was in no way the real Mr. Rogers. The documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor was a far better insight into the life of Rogers. Shape of Water honestly might have been a good movie to address the way humans treat creatures, but they fucked it up by having them fall in love. Like what the actual fuck? Bohemian Rhapsody. I love Queen but this movie sucks. Rocketman was fucking amazing. Dunkirk. I really wanted to like it, but I found the movie to be an absolute snooze fest. Black Panther. La La Land. Titanic. Avatar. I found Avengers Endgame really drawn out and boring. Just didn't hit home like the other movies. I really didn't understand the love for A Quiet Place. It relied overwhelmingly on cheap jump scares. Ironically, the movie that everyone seemed to hate, Bird Box, was basically what I thought A Quiet Place should have been. Much more dread and horror, with minimal jump scares. American Hustle. One of the most boring movies I have ever watched. Gravity is one of the worst movies I have ever seen because of its complete disregard of physics. It spit in Newton's face and shit in his cereal. Bullock was it though. Titanic. I just don't get it. Most of the special effects are amazing. Some shots have too much of that 90s CGI look. But the actual movie was an extremely generic love story with nothing new. All the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Avatar. I find it boring and a bad rip-off of Ferngully, which I loved as a kid. Blade Runner 1949. Sure, the cinematography was beautiful but it was so fucking boring. It was so long and so bad. It's being hailed as some amazing classic though, so clearly I'm just an unrefined monster. Pitch Perfect. Some of my friends made me watch that monstrosity. It has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Tree of Life was pretentious dog shit. Gravity was so full of scientific errors and illogical decisions every 5 minutes I couldn't enjoy it. Oh man, we're running out of oxygen. Anyway, tell me your life story. Pretty much every single Marvel movie. I simply don't understand how these movies are so popular. The Last Jedi. For me it's definitely The Last Jedi. It has 90 on Rotten Tomatoes but I'd say it's one of my least favorite movies of all time. The Last Jedi. It's the shittiest Star Wars movie of all time. Joker. It's meh at best. Crash. Ad Astra. Whole movie was a waste of time. Surprised I didn't fall asleep. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Birdman. The Irishman. Same gangster movie with octogenarian actor that we've seen 1,000 times before. But critics seem to eat that stuff up. I thought that Inception was so bad and uninteresting. You have this chance to set a movie in a dream realm and what we get is a pretty standard action movie with DiCaprio and a lot of pretentious dialogues. Nothing about it impressed me. See Paprika for a better approach. I wanted to like it, but Snowpiercer ended up being one of my least favorite movies I've ever seen. The Revenant. I don't get how LDC won an Oscar for one of his worst movies. I can't remember who he was up against that year but they must have been bad. He's a great actor but this movie was terrible. I swear at one point there felt like a 30-minute gap before the next person spoke. Under the Skin. It's not a super mainstream entry but I just hate it. The director basically got the rights to this amazing book, took the basic premise, and made a movie that hits not one single mark that the original work touched on. The book, I would argue, is barely adaptable that as it is. But because this movie got such rave reviews, I'd say it's extremely unlikely that we'll ever see another adaptation of it. If anything, it feels like they just acquired the rights so they could use the basic premise. Strange spooky woman picks up men in her car, and make their own movie while using the same title. Furthermore, I found it boring. Some interesting visuals but extremely boring. Split, The Lighthouse. I just didn't get it. And the story was the big downer for me. Crash. I challenge you to write a more pandering movie. But impossible character arcs and junior high-level storytelling is apparently Oscar-worthy if you spend enough money on bankable actors. Interstellar. So many hours of my life wasted. Moonlight was okay, but I didn't see anything special about it in all honesty. It was just a movie about a gay guy. That's it. Does anyone else feel the same way, or maybe I don't understand why it was so good to people, so can someone explain why? Maybe it's because I'm not gay so I couldn't connect with it. Also, Birdman was a fucking stupid movie. The Witch was a waste of time. There's a lot of recent movies I hate and cannot see why they're loved by so many. I really hated Call Me by Your Name. I found it incredibly pretentious and honestly not particularly well written. Felt like I was watching a postcard, only that it was pretending to be some great novel. In fact, and I don't say this lightly since taste is subjective, I found it so bad that I came to suspect a large portion of favorable reviews were written just to not go against the overblown hype around the movie and out of fear of seeming unsophisticated for not having understood this masterpiece. Just any Marvel movie. They're fun, I guess. But good reviews for tacky films just fuel the fan hysteria and annoying fan base. Hereditary. The Lighthouse would have been great art cinema satire, but everyone from production to critics insist on taking it seriously. So instead of funny, I find it annoying. Uncut Gems. I feel strange because literally all my friends loved it, but I felt like I literally watched a different film than them, because I wanted to walk out halfway through out of sheer boredom. A Star is Born is so cringy. I can't understand why people raved about it, just because they had good chemistry. I mean, yeah, they did, but that's probably cause they either wanted to or were sleeping with each other. Big whoop. The storyline was absolute garbage. So cheesy, weak and stereotypical. Can't believe two talented stars wasted their time on this and then got rave reviews and awards. *Edit. I meant the 2018 film. Also, till there were other movies by the same title. Haha. I feel young all of a sudden. 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was so needlessly long. The Blair Witch Project 1999 never got what all the hype was about. Phone Booth. Ad Astra. The Moon Pirates. The Girl from Mars Who's Never Been to Earth. The way they managed to make a desperate fall to Earth with a torn parachute boring. Fuck Brad Pitt and his I'm bored falling from space to Earth with a broken parachute. I wanna know why and how they're moon pirates. Also Drag Me to Hell. Psychological thriller my ass. It's jump scares galore and a woman who could have been rid of her problems. I don't care how much empathy you have for someone with mean parents. He kept screwing you over and you were literally going to be sent to hell. Survival instinct beats empathy? Sorry. Citizen Kane. Considered by critics to be a groundbreaking classic. What a piece of boring crap. Spolier. Rosebud was a toy sled. The Langoliers. The cast spends 3 hours repeating, "We need to figure out what's going on." The Last Jedi got a 90% on RT. That was when I realized sites like that are shills for the studios. The Master. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Incredibles. It's not a terrible film, but I don't think it deserves the praise that it gets, and I don't understand why everyone seems to love it. The Royal Tenenbaums. Not one laugh in the whole movie. Crying Game. American Beauty. Black Panther. Boring story and shitty CGI and fight, yet was praised simply because the main character was black. I didn't really like Spider-Man: Into the Spider-Verse. It was an above-average movie at first, but after watching it only 2 more times I just kind of hate it. Blair Witch Project, Bird Box, Forrest Gump, easily the worst movie I have ever seen. Shape of the Water. I'm not even complaining about fish sex, I don't care. It's just painfully mediocre and uninteresting. When I heard Del Toro was making a movie and I saw the costume, I got excited and thought he was continuing his Hellboy movies. Instead I got Drave Oscar bait. Speaking of Oscar baiting, it was very well received for some reason. Maybe it just wasn't for me. If you enjoy it, I'm happy you do. Shape of Water. It was ridiculously stupid to me. This attractive woman can't find a relationship with anybody but a mutant. She falls in love with it because I know it's artistic, but holy shit, I hate it. Breakfast at Tiffany's. 2001, A Space Odyssey. The movie starts out with the most boring, slow-paced, mind-numbing drivel I've ever seen. It wasn't so much a first act as it was an advertising reel for a special effects company. Just gave off a "look what we can do" vibe. I've tried multiple times to watch it and I've never finished because I fall asleep every time. Also, Napoleon Dynamite. I don't think anybody actually finds this movie funny in the sense that they'd laugh if they were watching it alone. The only time people actually laugh is when they quote lines from it to their friends in everyday situations. So it's actually the opposite of a synergy. The movie as a whole is less than the sum of its parts. Anything with Amy Schumer in it. Napoleon Dynamite. My god, that film is just awful. Endgame. Star Wars sequels. And Fast and Furious movies. Hot garbage. The Crying Game. I thought the love interest of the main character was obnoxious. And the movie was poorly paced. But it was about a transgender woman, so the critics loved it. Midsommar. It's just okay. If critics love a movie and it gets put up for all those fancy awards, I probably will think it is horrible. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, La La Land, Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading is the only movie I've paid to see in the last 20 years that I didn't finish. Hollywood, La La Land. I seriously considered stopping, and in hindsight wish I had.